I condemn myself. So I have to put another thing. Um, yeah, not attacking government. Not attacking government. I think, or my view and perception, when I sort of look at things from my distance, from sort of outdoor perspective, is the fight um, against government and not necessarily the fight that parties have to each other. I'm wondering right now if the parties that want to overthrow the current party, and the word overthrow is kind of key to me, because when you want to overthrow, that means you're being oppressed, and the oppression that we're being told is that um, people aren't getting a fair share. But then if we go to the Olympics and you have Paralympians running with, Usain Bolt, able-bodied men, um, for the sake of, opportunity, would that be fair? It's kind of, they are treating the party, as if though it's the government, because all they say is, yeah, if our party, if you elect our party, then we won't do like that party did. I haven't seen competition between the party candidates, and each other. The debate that never happened was a debate that never happened, and that's another key point. The debate that never happened. It's sort of parties against parties. It's not about the candidate. It's not about the caliber of the candidate anymore. Now it's about parties, and that's sort of the mentality is kind of old, because there was that let's overthrow the oppressive regime, which is the previous regime. They tried to overthrow that regime, so now they're trying to overthrow the current party instead of competing against the current party. Uh, the talk about parties coming together and forming one big party that to sort of win over the ruling party, it's sort of like fighting with Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson, and you decide it's not a fair fight, so you tell your friend to get into the ring so that you can pound the guy together. To me, it sort of sounds weak. It really sounds weak. I think it's sort of like admitting that they are being completely outsmarted. And if the common excuse is, we have tribal parties. Basically, people vote for a party because of the history that it has with them. The history, that dates back a long time ago, before we gained independence. So how are these factions going to work together when they have different histories? It would be making history, but how are they going to work together? How will they elect their president? Does it mean that people are requesting for the entire, um, you know, political system that we have now to sort of be changed to become Zimbabwe? Zimbabwe, which has two parties. One party has a man that will never leave, and the second party has a man that was being used by America to try and overthrow the dictator, and ended up getting beat up by police. He won't lose because the people are, they have a repetitive cycle, and their cycle is vote for the party that liberated us. Vote for the party that liberated us. That's Zimbabwe. We don't want to become a Zimbabwe. We don't want two parties. I personally do not want two parties. I just think that um, if the parties learn from their past mistakes, and if they learn from the ruling party, then they would have a greater impact. You know, if like for example, what happened, engaging with the communities, not just when it comes to election time, but fully dedicating 5 years, right, to making some sort of an impact. That kind of work ethic, people will vote for. I will vote for that kind of work ethic, right? I will definitely vote for that. But when it's election year and the hot topic is elections, and all of a sudden, you have parties coming out of their caves, saying vote for us. No, that doesn't make sense to me. That's why the party, our current ruling party says that they have been tried and tested, and they have, and the parties that we have now should also face their trials. They are also being tested, and the results that they're bringing in, it's disappointing. If I were to lobby a party, right? If I were to lobby a party in the Caprivi region, I would send someone that can speak Caprivi. I mean Caprivian, or yeah, I think it's Caprivian. I would send out someone that can speak that language, and that person will be the one that will give the people the party manifesto, as well as move around with the community so that they themselves can point out the wrongs. I would build trust, right? You cannot build trust just in the election year. It's impossible. 5 years to kind of do that, right? Trust is very important, and trust is why Swapo wins. It's not just their budget. They do have more spending power, but how did David defeat Goliath? He used a tiny stone. He used a tiny stone, and there went the giant. So I think the same thing is possible. All of the talk of tribal tensions, and I don't buy that. I don't believe that will happen. Most people are too tired, and the younger people are too entertained, and the people in the middle are too busy working their way up, their careers. So we have a stable country. What we're looking for is a stable parliament. And what I mean by a stable parliament is a fair, balanced parliament. And the president elect said he also wants that. But it's the people's choice. He could have advocated the whole time about how he wants, the other party, his party to vote for the other party's candidate. He could have done that. And people still would have voted for the party that they trust. That's why the logo it said in the party we trust. And people don't want. I don't want a party that will jump to the miracle first. I would like a party that is realistic first, and then they can explain their plan. They have to have the doers, they have to have the planners, and then they have to have the motivators. The party should have that, and the party needs to have different faces. If you just have one face, then it will only be one face that will be trusted. The faces of the ruling party, they are familiar to the people, because those are the people that they've been seeing in parliament for a really long time, since independence. And before independence, those were the people that were sort of communicating independence to the people, um, to the majority at least. And the first elections that we had was balanced. It was balanced to an extent. It wasn't. I don't think it was like won by a landslide like what happened now. I think it was a bit more balanced. And the country was fresh. It was new. Yeah, so the building up from nothing, building up from nothing to sort of create a nation. So trust. Trust is the most important thing, and people don't trust politicians, right? People don't trust politicians, but because the politician has to earn the people's trust, because the politician has to be involved with the people, so involved with the people that they can remember some names within a crowd, and that should start from the beginning. Consider it studying for the final exams, and when the fifth year comes for the final exams, you work your way up to it, right? You have all the answers. That's me putting it simplistically. I think most of the ruling parties know this. I mean, most of the opposition know this. I think they know this already. But I'm just sort of unloading my brain, and the Caprivian knowledge of the game. So I would have someone that can speak Caprivian, and then point out the problems. The ordinary people should point out the problems. The ordinary people should sort of give say their grievances. This we don't have anything that's wrong within that society. There's maybe too much drinking, teenage pregnancy, lack of schools, and lack of universities and such. And while this is happening, the parties can then try to sort of get funding for small projects, just small projects, where they work with the community. It was like what happened with, when the president scolded the gentleman from the NEG about the houses only having one door, and he said it was because the man wasn't present and looking at what the people, he wasn't overseeing what was happening there, right? And that's the way I view opposition parties. They don't look at how the house is being built. They only come the year of elections and complain about, no, when it rains, water drips out, there's a leaking tap, there's a, the door handles are cheap and all such things. Money isn't the only thing that can move people. We are human, we have compassion. Love can, love has, done miracles. We have independence because of it. Love, loyalty, and humility, right? Trying to humiliate the ruling party is very ineffective. It's kind of something that someone my age would do. It's not what I would expect from experienced opposition parties. So if they do join, and create a bigger party, I don't think they'll win. I don't think so, and I don't think that will mean that now they won't have a two-third majority anymore. If my party, right, if I belong to a party, and the party decides, no, we're creating a new party combined with this party, that party, and the president is someone else, I'll leave, right? Because that's a sort of betrayal. So you leave the party, and who will be the alternative? SWAPO. So it's the parties that they're building. And I know a certain party president who knows this. He knows that it's the party that needs to reform. You know, just like people had to, get used to technology. When computers first came in, they were dangerous, literally. You know, people, if someone worked with a computer, they were respected. You know, like new researchers, they were respected. Like that person can use a computer. It had that mythological element to it. But today, everyone's using computers casually. Today, cell phones are computers. Today, you get cell phones that are more powerful than the computer that took a man to the moon. Alright? Just imagine that gap. It is a big gap. But with simple ideas, it can be closed. And this comes from dialogue. It comes from dialogue within the community. Like, invite your promising community members over and start doing something. Start doing something to shape the community, in terms of your party, so that your party, kind of gets credibility. It gets credibility, and not just, giving people handouts when it comes to election, because that's what it is. I mean, imagine if, for 5 years, if I don't eat for 5 years, and on the 5th year I go to a bride that I'm invited to go eat, I wouldn't exist. I would have died from hunger. Eh? So, in order to rule a nation, you have to be accountable for them, for their hunger, for their thirst, their shelter. You have to be accountable for these things. And people have to see and believe and trust that you are accountable for these things, that you're willing to sort of get battered and bruised for that cause because you keep pursuing it. I think that's kind of the new language that we need from the opposition parties. There is that language, but I think the practical side has to be, included as well, even if it's just slightly. The community, um, the community problems, that sort of come out through media and stuff. The parties should comment on this, comment with solutions as well. Not just criticizing the government, saying no, it's because of the ruling party that these things are happening. The ruling party is, it's not doing what it said it would. Well, opposition aren't doing what they say they would either. Right? So, it's a fair fight, in my opinion. It is a fair fight. It's just how you train and your will, the capacity to sort of dream beyond. Your words are powerful. I've always believed that words are powerful. And okay, if I say I've had trial and tribulations, that I'm young, but I have experienced pain, and I'm talking about really, really deep, deep, deep pain. Completely giving up. I have had that, but then you find hope, and then you find people that are willing to help you. They also become a part of your, umbrella, so to speak. They also give you hope, and you base together, until you can stand on your own. And I'm not calling opposition parties babies, right? I mean, they've been here for a long time, they know politics better than I do and so forth. But do they know the people well? Do they understand the people well? The younger generation, the middle class, and the elderly. Do they understand them? I think only speaking for the plight only speaking for the plight of people when the news comes to you through media. To me, that's already alarming. I think a party should have such a good impact and communication, especially communication with um, their communities in different constituencies, so that they can, get the call from people like, this and this and this happened. They can do a lot. They have the capacity to do a lot, and they should symbolize hope. They should symbolize hope, and you know that's all about trust. It's trust and it's loyalty and the acknowledgement that it takes time. Patience is a virtue. Patience is needed. Patience is why we won uh, the fight for independence. It was all because of patience. Imagine if they just gave up and threw away all of their AK-47s and their knives and grenades and all that and said, no, this will never happen. No, there were people who died hoping, right? There were people who died hoping, and there were people that were forced. They were forced to become a force to oppose their own people. So there are two different tragedies, and the third tragedy is uh, the population that belonged to the former ruling regime that were first class, right? They are sort of the third because they are excluded due to the belief um, that they are already advantaged because they were part of that former system, and that's a cop out. It's a cop out. It's a desperation response. I think it's something that someone would say, when they don't really have anything to say, and then bring up rhetoric. It's complete rhetoric. Um, white supremacy cannot be denied. But when it's said, it also has to be explained in a certain context. Like white supremacy is not racism, right? It's systematic, and it's systematic dating back all the way from the slave trade of Africans, the demoralization. But if we acknowledge, right? If we acknowledge the third population, like me, I totally do because I grew up among these people. I mean, I have family, that are white, so I don't really, skin hue, skin, that's it's not enough to sort of describe a personality. I think culture is what molds a person's internal um, place. So the culture can be changed, but it needs to be accepted. It needs to be accepted. The complaints should be accepted. They shouldn't be divided anymore. There shouldn't be people that live in the location and people that live in Nivedor, because in the middle you have this conflict. And when you have this conflict in the middle, the hate sort of jumps over the place of protest all the way to the location, and the location it jumps over all the way to the new town. Right? The finger pointing becomes people pointing fingers at each other instead of sort of coming together, looking at the problem and thinking up solutions. And that's activism basically. And I believe in activism more than I do politics. I admire activism more than I do politics, just plain old politics. I think activism is a natural trait that we need in order to get to the next stage, in order to get to the next phase. But it should be all inclusive, um, and it should also consider the consequences. Activist is not only the present, it's also about the future. You know, I salute the activist, everyone that's advocating for something. I completely salute you. And you're building our nation and moving our nation forward, bringing out questions from citizens and not members of a certain party. So yeah, that'll be my last thing.